This next topic, I like the title, The Growth of Business and Acquisition in the Silver Tsunami. J.C. Morales is putting that up on his wall right now. He likes the Silver Tsunami part because of his hair looking so beautiful and his beard. Do you know J.C. Morales? Give him a big round of applause, please. The Silver Fox, we call him. As thousands of baby boomers prepare to retire, millions of small businesses will be up for transition, what's some called the Silver Tsunami. This creates a once-in-a-generation opportunity for new leaders to step in, acquire businesses, and create inclusive ownership models. Put that in the context of what you've heard so far from Samantha and Alejandra. To explore this moment and what it means for our communities, we're joined by two leaders in their field. One is the program director at Cooperative Fund of Northeast and a pioneer in worker-owned business models. The other serves as the engagement and outreach manager at ICA Group, helping expand employee ownership across New York and Massachusetts. Will you please join me in the honor that I have of bringing them to the stage? Ladies and gentlemen, give them a big round of applause. Carolyn Edsell-Vetter, Khalif Nunnally-Rivera, who are going to lead us through this conversation. Do you need a mic or are you set? You got a mic? You got a mic?
Just need a clicker.
You just need a clicker. Give him a big round of applause, please.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. First, I want to thank Samantha for really setting that up for us nicely. Ownership creates wealth. We are powering this economy, but we're not usually well set up to actually build personal or community wealth. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. Before we start, I have a few disclaimers. While this is a talk about business development, I don't have an MBA. Oh, it gave me all the things at the same time. I have a master's in divinity, and I like to weed. And that last part's important because when I was hired by a landscaping company in graduate school, I was hired to weed and push a lawnmower, y porque soy bilingüe, because I'm bilingual. The owner of the company was a very smart businesswoman, but she didn't speak Spanish, and most of my coworkers were from Central America. So my main qualification was that I was Latina and not afraid of hard work. So fast forward to 2013. Our boss gave us the opportunity to buy the company from her. Now, we are landscapers. We do not have the money to buy somebody out. And none of us were that excited about becoming the boss and stepping into her shoes. But we'd seen what happened to our competitors when they got bought up by big national companies. We saw what happened to job quality and wages, and we didn't want that. So 10 of us came together, we formed a worker cooperative, and we took out a loan and bought the company. I learned on the job, including business, so I stayed on for 5 years after that as the co-CEO, and I'm proud to say the company more than doubled in revenue since the purchase to over $4 million now. So it's not chump change. But what I'm most proud of is what we were able to do for ourselves as co-owners. With the profits we were able to keep and share within the cooperative, people bought their first homes. They sent kids to college. They even went out and started their own businesses. So that's really the opportunity here, and this is why we wanted to share this idea of employee ownership with you, because we know it can change lives for Latino workers and for our communities and build wealth in our communities. And now I'll hand it off to Khalif to introduce himself.
Thank you, Carolyn. As you heard, this was a great story about how employee ownership can really transform our communities. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about my story and how I got into this work and how I saw the power of how this, can really transform, cities like my own, Springfield, Massachusetts. That's where I was born and raised. Thank you, everyone. Anybody from Springfield here? Hey, there we go. All right. So, for those that don't know, Springfield is a predominantly Black and Latino city. I'm the product of a Black father and a Puerto Rican mother, so standing here representing. And a little bit of the history. It's a former industrial center. It was a place where a lot of manufacturing happened. There were plenty of jobs. But then, in the 70s and 80s, a lot of those factories left, leaving a real economic gap in the city. And with that, led to a lot of struggles, a lot of economic challenges for the families that moved there and people that came to Springfield, expecting to work, were left with a very challenging situation. So there's a lot of untapped potential. My family still lives in Springfield. I no longer live there. I live in Brooklyn, New York, but I go home a lot, and I'm still heavily, invested in the city. So I thought, what really can be done to, help improve the situation? In college, I met with a professor. He helped start what's known as the Wellspring Cooperative. The Wellspring Cooperative was founded in 2011, and it was an organization that was meant to help incubate co-op businesses in the community. These are businesses that are run and founded by the people that live there, and they're in a variety of different industries, as you can see. We have the Wellspring Harvest, which provides fresh fruit and vegetables to the community. We have an upholstery shop. We have businesses in the ecological services. So these businesses and these cooperatives specifically were key tools in really helping revitalize the city, and they're a way to preserve jobs and give people living wages. So I wanted to give share a little piece of how this works in Springfield, and hopefully we can spread this throughout the Commonwealth. My organization, the ICA group, is one of the organizations that is one of the leaders, along with CFNE, which Carolyn is a part of. And a lot of our goals are really to expand employee ownership. And our big motto is, three things: building worker wealth, building worker power, and building worker voice. So with that being said, I want to give it back to Carolyn, and she'll explain a little bit more about how this can work.
Okay, so let's get into it. What is the Silver Tsunami? So picture a growing tidal wave of baby boomers approaching retirement age. When our boss retired in 2014, she was kind of the leading edge of that wave, but now it's crested. So in just the next 5 years, by 2030, all baby boomers will be over 65. So what? What does that mean for us here? I turned off the thing. That's what that means. In our region, in the Northeast, 200,000 small business owners are going to retire in the next few years. Talk about generational wealth transfer. But they don't have a plan about what they're going to do with their businesses when they retire. They might think, I'll give it to the kids, I'll sell it. We know that those strategies only work about 20% of the time. What's more likely is more than half of those businesses, the owner's just going to have to shut the doors. And that's not good for anybody, because the owner loses all the value they've built up in that business, and the workers are left without good jobs. So that's the threat here. Our experience at a yard and a half, some of the experiences at Springfield, those are the opportunity. So the owner of our company took the time to build a business that was ready to sell. And instead of selling it outside to a national big corporation and having the profits go elsewhere, she sold it to her employees, and we kept the profits local to build local wealth. So that's the opportunity to buy profitable businesses with a proven track record and use those to continue building generational wealth. In response to this unique crisis and opportunity, our two organizations and many others developed the Northeast Transition Initiative, really to do what we're doing today, to educate people about exit planning and the importance of it and the opportunity of employee ownership. So if you're a business owner, and again, thanks to Samantha for sort of leading the charge on this, it's never too early to start thinking about succession planning. If you work with small business owners, get them to think about exit planning when they start their business, and remember that employees can be your best buyers. So let's get into it in a little more depth about employee ownership, whether you're buying out your boss or you're buying another beloved business in your community. Quick show of hands. Before today, how many of you had heard of worker cooperatives? And I know Ari's here and Jose is here, so okay, good, thank you. So you know, if you're local, you know Cero Composting Co-op, you know Equal Exchange Coffee, Democracy Brewing. You know, those are just a few examples of worker co-ops right here in our city. And worker co-ops are one of the two most common forms of employee ownership, along with ESOPs, or employee stock ownership plans. And really what these have in common is they're businesses where employees own some or all of the company. Where they differ is that ESOPs are sort of like a specialized retirement plan. So as a retirement plan, they're highly regulated. They're a little more expensive to set up and administer. So they're a better fit for larger businesses with higher revenues. In contrast, worker co-ops are really a flexible model. They give 100% of the ownership to the employees and also democratic governance to the people who work there. And it's a really flexible model that can work for as few as 3 or up into the hundreds of workers. So I'll hand it back to Khalif now to do a deep dive into worker co-ops.
All right, thank you. So as you can see here, this model is one that's prevalent throughout the country, from the Northeast to the South, in Puerto Rico, California. Worker cooperatives, you know, are not unique to one specific area of the country, although there is a large concentration in the Northeast. This is something that has been successful throughout the country and throughout the world. You know, there are co-ops all over the world that are functioning. One of the largest ones is actually in Spain, called Mondragon. You know, you should look that up. Over hundreds of thousands of employees, creates trillions of dollars, you know, in assets for the workers. So, you know, that's an international example. But really, you can start a co-op in any type of business, any kind of industry, from retail to the food business to healthcare. If you name it, you could start a co-op in that area. So I wanted to highlight a couple of cooperative businesses here in our region. The first one is Cooperative Home Care Associates. This is a co-op that was founded in the Bronx, New York. The workers are 75% Latina, about 20% Black, and 99% are women. It started in 1985 from just 12 home healthcare aides. Think about that. From 12 people, it grew into a cooperative of 1,500 staff. And not only are they staff, they are owners of the business itself. That means they own a piece of the business. They get the profits from this business. They get a say in how the business is run. That's powerful. CHCA right now is the largest worker co-op in the US. And it's a significant driver of living wage work in the Bronx, one of the most economically distressed boroughs, probably the most economically distressed borough in New York City. And now for an example that's a bit closer to home, we have 4 Buds Floral Studio. It's located in Providence, Rhode Island, and the story of how this co-op started is a bit different. It's 50% Latino owned, and how it started was that it was a cooperative that they acquired. So these 4 women, they started a co-op business, but they needed the capital, they needed a storefront, they needed the list to really figure out, you know, how we're gonna run our business. And instead of building that up from scratch, they decided to purchase another business. So originally they tried to buy out the shop that they were working at. And when that fell through, they actually searched and looked around for businesses that were ready to sell, and they found a shop. And that's how 4 Buds Floral Studio was born. They got to acquire an existing business and then run it as a cooperative. So that's another way that workers can really come together and form this co-op model and share the wealth amongst each other. So what does it actually mean to be part of a cooperative? Well, there are 2 main facets. The first one is shared ownership. Shared ownership in a co-op means that only the workers become members of this cooperative. That means it's not liable for outside shareholders or other people that don't work there. 100% of the profits and the wealth go back to the workers. In a worker co-op, it's one member share per worker. So everyone gets to split these shares amongst each other, and then you can keep adding shares as the co-op grows larger. So over time, the co-op can expand in size and people can have more opportunities to join. And then profit is shared equitably. So that means typically co-ops will split their profits at the end of the year, and it'll be based off of, usually how many hours you worked, or, a formula that the co-op determines, is fair. But the key part is that the members themselves decide how they share the profits, which is, unlike any other model that you have for business ownership. Usually it would go to an outside shareholder, or it would go to just one owner. In this way, you actually have a system where the workers can benefit from from their labor on top of what they're making already, in terms of salary and wages. Then the second facet is shared control. They get access to the financial information, they can vote on large decisions in the company, and they can run for and elect the board. So not only do you have the profit sharing, you also have a say in what happens in the company when it comes to corporate decisions. So these are just some of the reasons here why businesses decide to become co-ops. A lot of owners either decide to, they want to retire and recover the value of the business. They want to reward employees. But when it comes to exit planning, these are a lot of the reasons why somebody might want to consider this. So, this can be a real win for both the workers and the selling business owner as they look for a way to retire and to hand off their business to the next generation. So before we end, I want to leave you here with a list of practical steps that you can take. If you're a business owner, it's never too early to start exit planning. This is a list of steps that you can take, if you're deciding to sell to another person, or, if you want to consider an employee ownership transaction. Take a look at these steps and, start planning. And again, we really see this as a win for the business owners, a win for the workers. Whether you're an aspiring business owner or you're a worker or part of a company, this is a win for you. And it's a win for the community, because now you're keeping these jobs local, you're keeping that money in the community, and you're preventing, that business from getting bought out or closing down and losing all those jobs. So before we end, I want to hand it back to Carolyn. She's going to talk a little bit more about how you can get more involved in this project. Thank you, everyone.
So I know we're at time, so hopefully we can leave this up while the next person's getting introduced. If you're a business owner, we would love to hear from you. We won't market to you, but we are trying to understand what people know already about exit planning. If you want to learn more, there will be a link in there that you can have somebody reach out to you. Thanks again.
All right. Thank you.